Boys, ready?
Yo.
Alright, welcome to the first, hopefully successful episode of Analyze and Educate, A&E, whatever you want to call it. I'm Brody. I served in the Marines for 4 years, and right now I'm trying to get a degree in political science.
I'm Luis. Also served 4 years in the Marine Corps. We served together, same unit, deployed together. It's enough about me.
I'm Magno, the cameraman. Served in the Marines too, 4 years, 2-7.
Alright, so originally when we thought of this, we kind of wanted it to be half current events, kind of, and the other half military history. I think for this first one, we're going to do current events just because we don't know how long it's going to be. This is kind of a second test run. So let's get off to the news. So first, earlier this week, NORAD scrambled, looks like 2 U.S. Air Force F-22s and 2 Royal Canadian Air Force CF-18s to escort 2 Russian Tu-160 bombers that were approaching the Arctic coast of the North American continent, so Canada. Canada has a ton of really big islands up in the Arctic, and it sounds like these bombers were approaching the islands towards Canadian airspace, and NORAD scrambled these jets. This type of thing happens all the time, all over the world. You know, Russians go into U.S. airspace in Syria and vice versa. It's nothing new. It's just something to be cognizant of. You know, a lot of people like to talk about the Second Cold War. If you want to call it that, sure, whatever. But this is kind of mentioned to keep everyone on notice that tensions are definitely there, and they're not going to die down anytime soon. You got anything on that?
Yeah, what do you think those 2 Russian Tu-160s were doing out there?
I mean, just exactly this. So, it's just a stupid show of force every time. Yeah. Like I said, this happens all over the world. They're like, oh, yeah, we're going to fly into your airspace to show that, like, we could fly places. Okay, who cares? One thing to note with the Tu-160, it is supersonic and nuclear capable. So, like the B-1 Lancer, I think the B-1B Lancer. I don't know, the B-2 might be supersonic as well, but I know the B-1 Lancer is. So, it's just a stupid show of force, man. We do it, they do it, all over the world. All the time. We do it like North Korea, you know, like I remember that every year or so we fly B-52s like right next to North Korea just to show them that we can. Yeah, it happens. You got anything?
And one of the North Korea's against like U.S. when they show force close to the border. And they do it as well, North Korea.
Yeah, I mean they try to.
Always like show force.
You know, they do like their little military exercises near the border, and we do it too.
Yeah.
You know, my great uncle was in during the 60s, but he didn't go to Vietnam. He was on the DMZ in Korea, and he was like one of the QRF dudes up there, and he said like the North Koreans would try and bring their tanks, and they try and dig tunnels through the DMZ, you know, and it is a pretty normal occurrence. You know, even though there's a ceasefire, they're still shooting at each other. All right. Ready for the next one?
Definitely.
All right. So this week it was announced that thousands more troops are going to go to the U.S.-Mexico border. They did not provide a specific number. The Pentagon did make this announcement, though, so the number and the timeline have not been announced. They did say that the Department of Homeland Security, so you know, Border Patrol, they're talking amongst each other to kind of figure out when it's going to happen and how many they need and who they need. So I guess stay tuned for that. Also, oh, you have anything for that?
Yes. So would they deploy would they get more U.S. Border Patrol agents, or they just do National Guard type thing? What do you think?
I mean, that's the thing, is we really don't know. So
Yeah.
there was already thousands of guard guys. Maybe not that. I think hundreds. I can't remember. There was the guard, and then they said 5,000 active duty troops. So I think they sent a few Marine units, a lot of Army, a lot of Air Force units to go set up sea wire and do surveillance and that kind of thing. So, if they do send more troops, it'll probably be active duty, because I want to say that because that's what they did last time, but I'm not sure. But they said they'll set up sea wire and do surveillance.
Yeah,
so.
honestly, there's a lot of active duty units out there, and aren't doing anything.
Well, yeah. So they said when they announced this last time with the last batch that went, that their purpose is to really do more of the logistical stuff.
Okay.
That some of the Border Patrol agents do, so those guys could get freed up to do patrols and stuff like that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Expected to last till September.
Really?
Yeah. As far as setting up sea wires, and they're making checkpoints as well.
Yeah. Okay.
ECPs.
So one thing that we should mention is this is not a political channel at all. I'm gonna try and keep this as unbiased as we can. One thing to keep in mind is we're all American. We were all Marines, so there is a little bit of bias here. It's impossible to be completely 100% unbiased, but we're gonna try. Again, not about politics. We're mentioning this because it's a large troop movement of U.S. troops to the border. It doesn't matter what we think about the politics. That's just the fact of the matter. All right. So, Mike Pompeo on Friday, announced that the U.S. is going to be leaving the nuclear and ballistic missile treaty that we have with Russia. I think China might be a part of that too. Can you look that up? Yeah, so he announced that we're going to leave this treaty that was signed, I want to say by Reagan in the 80s, between us and the Soviet Union, and then it carried on to Russia. So the U.S. in the past few months has accused Russia of violating the treaty numerous times, which, I mean, they probably have.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, I'm sure we have too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? These treaties don't mean anything.
No, they don't. They don't mean shit.
So Trump has been talking these past few months, and Pompeo's been talking, and Mattis might have even touched on it a little bit before he left, saying that, if you keep violating the treaty, we're going to leave. So Mike Pompeo announced yesterday that we are going to leave. He said he gave the Russians 6 months to address any grievances they have with us leaving, or if they want to, get in compliance with the treaty, and then we all stay. But after that 6 months, we're just gonna leave, and it's a done deal.
Do you think that'll start another Cold War or something?
I mean, like I said a little bit earlier, I mean, people already call this the second Cold War.
That's what I heard.
And I could kind of see that. I don't know if it's gotten to that point yet, but it probably will. It will probably within the next 5 or 10 years, if we do leave that treaty, which we're probably going to, because I don't expect Russia to say, "Oh, yeah, we violated the treaty. We're going to stop." They're not going to do that, and we wouldn't do it either.
No,
that's why they only send a mercenary, so it doesn't really connect to the Kremlin.
Yeah, Russia's all about plausible deniability, but yeah, if and when we leave this treaty, because we will, it could start another Cold War. Not immediately, but pretty soon thereafter, because we're going to start developing more ballistic missiles and nukes, which again I'm sure we've already been doing, and Russia is going to do the same, which Russia's definitely been doing. So it's just going to be a new arms race. Were you able to find out if China's part of that too? I heard something about them being a part of it. I wasn't sure.
All right, let me check it out.
What's that? We have it. It's the like intercepts ballistic missiles. Remember we tested one in 29 Palms.
Did we?
What was it? I don't think you were. ITX. We were out there, Road Guard. They said they were testing that missile that intercepts ballistic missiles and like shoots them down.
I forgot what that.
I forgot what it was called.
Yeah, I forgot what that system was called.
Cause I remember it was a big thing out there.
We have I don't know. We have a good amount of anti-ballistic missile or
I'm sure we have
rocket
safeties.
systems. You heard about the Iron Dome, the Israeli Iron Dome?
No.
It's a fairly recent thing, but it is super high tech system, and it shoots like a ton of these small little rockets that intercept rockets coming over the border. So like Hamas and Hezbollah are always launching rockets over the border just because, and this Iron Dome is pretty good at intercepting them. And there was talk within the past couple weeks about the U.S. maybe getting some of those. It would be kind of cool.
You ever heard
They work. Good.
I'm sure you heard of the railgun, the Navy railgun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
That thing is badass.
China's
Dude.
got important like economic goals for Syria, so China's trying to get like larger international influence
I bet.
operations and like.
Yeah, we'll touch about that in a little bit. You good on this topic?
Yeah, I am.
All right. Let's talk about Venezuela for a little bit. Spend a decent amount of time talking about this. So, lots been going on in Venezuela within the past 2.5 weeks. So, cliff notes. So, there's this opposition leader named Juan Guaido that was imprisoned in Bolivia early January or late December. Got out of prison, and then he declared himself interim president. Venezuela recently had an election, and a lot of people are debating on how fair that election was, but of course Maduro won.
Of course.
Won.
That's what you get for living in a socialist country.
So Juan Guaido got out of prison, got freed, whatever, came back, declared himself interim president, while Maduro still had power, but Guaido's seen a lot of backing with some of the civilian populists who are, obviously tired of starving and not having money for literally anything. He's seen some support from the military. He's seen a decent amount of support from the international community. So, President Trump and Mike Pompeo came out and declared support for him and for his government. So I believe Guaido announced his own ambassador to the U.S. So Guaido has the support of us. He has the support of the UK, France, Spain, Canada, Colombia, Brazil, Argentina, and Israel. And I'm sure there are other countries in there that those are the ones that I was able to find. But it seems like a majority of the world is kind of taking sides in this, which the U.S. asked them to do. By the way, Mike Pompeo went to the UN and was like, take a side. You have to pick. So, Maduro is backed by Russia.
Of course.
A lot of backing from Russia, and we'll get into that in a second. Turkey, big surprise there, who are somehow a NATO ally, even though they, slaughter Kurds and love Russia. I don't know how that happens, but whatever. China, big surprise. China is actually Venezuela's biggest economic backer. So, when the president before Maduro, I can't remember his name for some reason.
I don't even know, man.
I don't know. The president before Maduro that really started the socialist movement in Venezuela, he took over and he basically nationalized all the country's resources, mainly oil. Venezuela actually has the biggest oil reserves in the world.
I heard that too.
Even more than Saudi Arabia.
Hugo Chavez, that's his name.
That's right.
I wonder why. I wonder why the U.S. wants to help.
So Hugo Chavez.
So we live in California. Gallon of gas is at least $3.50.
Yeah. So Hugo Chavez took over as the first socialist leader in Venezuela, and he nationalized all the resources, so oil.
Of course.
And he made a lot of international companies shy away from investing in Venezuela, because they were afraid that the government was going to take over those resources and kind of shut them out. Except for Russia and China. Russia, a little less than China. China is actually the biggest economic backer, so they have the most money in Venezuela than any country. So they support Maduro, obviously, but we'll talk about that a little more later. Mexico, I put Mexico in here. I should have elaborated on that more. So Mexico is supporting Maduro if he announces free elections.
It's not going to happen.
So there are a couple, it's not, but there are a couple countries or entities, whatever. So Mexico and the EU, not the countries of the EU, but the EU as like its own entity, announced support for Maduro if he arranges free elections. So we'll support you if you arrange free elections. If you win, great. If you don't win, whatever.
Well, he's not going to win if they do a free election.
Exactly. But yeah, they said we will support you as a legitimate ruler of Venezuela if you go along with free elections. And they gave him a 6-month timetable to arrange free elections, and they said, if not, then we are going to support Juan Guaido. So he also has the backing of Syria, big surprise there, going along with Russia. Who could have guessed? Nicaragua, a big surprise there, another socialist Central American country. Or
Bolivia.
Yeah. Bolivia, another socialist South American country.
That's probably the weirdest one. Greece.
Yeah. So
Greece.
I think Greece is following in suit more with the European Union. I could be wrong. It's kind of awkward, or not awkward. It's weird.
What's happening in Greece right now? I don't know.
No, back like a few years, like
I know
they had a really bad economic depression.
Yeah.
I'm sure their economy isn't great, but I don't know if they're as bad as they were like 10 years ago.
I remember,
no, it got pretty bad.
So I remember I saw this video
they had to
that
borrow money from the EU. I know Germany got pretty drained from that.
So I remember I saw this video that people in Greece were handing out food to only like Greece citizens.
Really?
Yeah, and people were like freaking out because they're
Peculiar Greece supporting like the socialists.
Yeah, because they were freaking out because their little flag or the little emblem they had, it looked like a swastika. That's why I saw it. I saw the video and they were like, "Oh, this is what's going on in Greece right now."
No
Honestly,
surprise,
I only saw one video. I don't really know much about it, but they were in bad times. I know, that's all I know.
That's weird.
No surprise too, Cuba.
Cuba.
Yeah. So lastly, Cuba.
Right. Is Cuba still a thing?
Cuba is still a thing, contrary to popular belief. Cuba's still
in charge of Cuba right now. Fidel Castro's brother or something.
No, it was. He stepped down and they had an election. I can't remember the guy that won, but he's another,
of course,
another member of the Communist Party. So nothing's gonna change.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
Do people not learn?
Didn't the Russians?
Not always.
Didn't the Russians warned us to not intervene in Venezuela?
Of course they did.
Yeah. So, we'll talk about that in a bit. So, the Venezuelan military attaché to the U.S., Colonel Jose Luis Silva, announced support for Guaido. So this was important because he was the first high-ranking military official to announce support for Guaido. Right? He's in Washington, D.C., but he did a little live stream or whatever and, announced his support for Guaido. So that was important when that happened. I didn't get to add this in the notes, but something that actually happened earlier this morning is there was a Venezuelan Air Force general. I can't remember his name. Can you look up our last post? His name's on our last post. I can't remember it though. But this Venezuelan Air Force general came out and said that he supports Juan Guaido as well. So this is important because he's right now the highest ranking and most important military official to announce support for him, right?
It. His name is General Francisco Yanez.
Okay. So he's important because he's the highest ranking military official, and he is the strategic planning director for the Venezuelan Air Force. So I don't know. I mean, you could argue the threat that the Venezuelan Air Force poses to about anything besides its own civilians, but I mean, right? Like, this guy's in charge of strategic planning.
Yeah.
So if there is anything important about the Venezuelan Air Force, like, it's this guy.
Yeah.
Announcing support for
So
Guaido.
you said Bolivia supports Maduro, right?
Yeah.
But he's
Yeah,
claiming,
like they were the ones that arrested Juan Guaido.
Yeah. He's claiming 90% of Bolivian national armed forces is with Guaido.
So so it's actually different. It's the like Bolivarian armed forces. So I think that's what Venezuela calls their armed forces. You know, like Bolivar. What was it? What was his name? The dude that like freed all of like South America and Central America.
Oh,
from the
I know what you're
Spanish.
talking about.
What was his name?
Yeah.
It's very old.
I can't remember
Yeah.
names right now.
Simon Bolivar?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
that's like-
they like named it after him.
Pablo Escobar had a sword,
Nice little
man.
tribute. Of his?
Yeah, dude.
Oh, he stole it, didn't he?
He stole it.
Yeah.
He stole it. But
Didn't he get like college kids to steal it?
Yeah, I don't know. He probably got some socialists to steal it. Some guerrillas.
But yeah, they were like, there was like this little communist like terrorist group of college kids. and then he like killed them all, dude.
That sounds very familiar. We have a lot of those here in America.
But yeah, that was important because
This whiskey's kicking in.
like this guy's in charge of strategic planning for the Air
Yeah.
Force. If there's anyone in the Venezuelan Air Force that's important, it's this guy. So he knows all the plans, he knows all the operations, you know, all the contingencies and stuff like that. So that's pretty important. It'll be interesting to see who goes along with him, right? Because this guy's got to have a little bit of influence. He's a general. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say he's going to bring over the entire Air Force, the entire military, but he's got to have a little bit of influence as a general. You know, so it'll be interesting to see who goes along with him, especially keeping in mind that Colonel Silva also announced support for Guaido, right? So we're seeing more and more military
people,
officials,
yeah.
higher-ranking officials supporting Guaido. On Friday, so yesterday morning, Juan Guaido held a press conference at Caracas University, and he was basically detailing his plan, or his plans to, you know, ease the humanitarian crisis that's in Venezuela, you know, because money is essentially worth dirt. There's no food, honestly. And people are literally starving.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't even afford...
I've seen
like
before and after pictures of like grocery stores, and it's sad.
I mean, you can't even afford like a bottle of water.
Man. I don't know. You just... It's weird.
Yeah, I see some of them digging through trash. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's awful though.
There's reports of people eating
are,
dogs and cats.
I mean, at the very least,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? They're lucky if they get
That's-
that. There's people that
that's-
are actually starving in that country. Anyway,
Is there a death rate, man? In Venezuela?
I'm sure it's out. I'm sure it's out there. I haven't seen anything. I would have to
Has to be
look.
some kind of statistic on it.
Yeah, I mean, bad, obviously.
Of course.
Can't be good. But basically he was like announcing his plans to ease the crisis. He was interrupted by one of his aides telling him that his house was raided by special forces, probably at the request of Nicolas Maduro. One can only guess. But yeah, this guy's guarded. He's on the run. He can't stay in one place for too long because now he knows that special forces are out to get him.
Yeah.
It was one thing where Maduro was like, you know, this guy's an idiot, you know, pay attention to me, I'm the president. Now they're actually going after him. They want to get him. something to be cognizant of.
I like how Colombia is actually for Guaido.
Yeah, so
Colombia doesn't really appreciate a lot of Venezuela moving in the country.
well, Colombia and Venezuela have been at odds ever since Chavez came to power, you know, because they're right next to each other. Venezuela's obviously very different economically and politically speaking to Colombia. Colombia is one of our big allies in that region, so they haven't liked each other too much for the past couple decades. So at the beginning of all this, Maduro actually tried to cut diplomatic ties with the U.S. What is this?
I don't know, but the wrapping is you're gonna hear it on the microphone.
Christ, man.
It's good. What is it? What flavor?
Strawberry yogurt kind of shit.
Yeah.
I don't know how well it goes with whiskey, but alright. It's whiskey kicking in.
Oh, God, that sounds awful. So he tried to cut diplomatic ties with the U.S. and he gave the U.S. 72 hours to get every U.S. diplomat out of the country. He didn't say what he was going to do after those 72 hours. Pompeo is pretty much like, yeah, well, actually, we like Guaido, so we're going to work with him. So, yeah, we're going to not pay attention to that. And we didn't. So Maduro actually backtracked on the 26th of January on that order, allowing for a 30-day negotiation period with the U.S. He knew we weren't gonna leave. You know what I mean? We announced support for Guaido. Guaido has a decent amount of support. Like, why would we take orders from Maduro if we don't acknowledge him as a legitimate leader, right? So he realizes that. So he suspended that order for 30 days for a diplomatic period to try and negotiate, which he should know that the U.S. isn't going to do that because we don't see him as a legitimate ruler, right? So that's going to amount to nothing. That's pretty much Maduro trying to save a little bit of credibility. So John Bolton, the national security advisor to the president, a man who I do not particularly care for, but that is irrelevant. He declared that any assault on U.S. diplomats, Juan Guaido, the Venezuelan National Assembly, who don't like Maduro particularly much either, or the rule of law in Venezuela will be met with a response, presumably a military response, right? That's usually what that means. John Bolton is not a guy that shies away from using military force, which is funny because he's a draft dodger, but
irrelevant. I gotta look into that. I mean, there was a lot of draft dodgers, man, back in the day.
He joined the National Guard, right? And he wrote in his yearbook. Right, yeah, so he wrote in his yearbook at Yale that he joined the National Guard so he wouldn't die in a rice paddy. Like, I mean, that's one thing, but here you are, the National Security Advisor.
Maryland Army National Guard.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whatever, dude.
58,000 people, right? Was it 58,000?
American
lives lost in Vietnam?
54,000. Between 54 and 58, I want to say. Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of draft dodgers back in the day, I want to say.
Well, yeah, but not all of them are the National Security Advisor.
True.
Yeah. But irrelevant.
Yeah, definitely. We'll get into that in a different video. But for now, continue. So,
the foreign minister under Maduro accused the CIA, Colombian military intelligence, and exiled members of the Venezuelan military of collaborating with each other to assassinate Maduro. Alright, so, welcome back. We had a little bit of camera troubles, but hopefully we got it figured out. So we'll put this and the last recording we did together for all one episode. So, Nicolas Maduro attempted to cut diplomatic ties with the U.S. when this whole thing started going on. U.S. just ignored it, and they're like, nah, we're with Guaido now, so we're like just gonna act like that never happened. And then Maduro backtracked a couple days after he tried doing that because he realized that we're not going to take him seriously. And he said it was to allow for a 30-day negotiation period, which anyone with a brain should realize that is not going to happen between himself and our government. So, John Bolton, around the same time, the national security advisor to Trump, senior national security advisor, because, there's like 12 that all do the same thing. Stupid. He declared that any assault on U.S. diplomats, Juan Guaido himself, the Venezuelan National Assembly, or the rule of law in the country will be met with a response, presumably military response. So if you don't know much about John Bolton, he likes sending people to war but doesn't like going there himself. So the guy's kind of an idiot, but whatever, irrelevant. The Venezuelan foreign minister for Maduro, not Guaido, accused the CIA, Colombian intelligence, and exiled members of the Venezuelan military of getting together and trying to assassinate Maduro. Didn't provide any evidence on that, so yeah. Alright, guy. Okay. Russia has about $25 billion worth of assets in that country, whether it be, foreign aid to the government or, in the oil industry or other infrastructure, stuff like that. In December, they sent 2 Tu-160 supersonic bombers. I believe we talked about that earlier in the last video. So he sent 2 of those bombers. Putin did. I should clarify that. Vladimir Putin sent 2 of the bombers to Venezuela in December as, I don't know, like kind of a show of force on us, I guess.
How big are they? I'm gonna search them up.
They're pretty big. I want to say it's about the size of a B-1.
Oh, serious? Nothing a P-51 Mustang can't handle.
They're pretty big, dude.
For real.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
I should have just had Magno look it up.
Let's see here. Oh, yeah, that's pretty.
There's 6,000 as of December 2017.
6,000 what?
The Wagner. They're the size of the Wagner group.
Really?
Yeah.
Serious?
About 6,000. Probably more than that now.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that I'm sure we don't know about.
The Wagner group, that's like the private military thing, right?
Yeah. So
Russian block water.
pretty much, dude.
Nothing a bunch of 19-year-old alcoholics can't handle.
No, it's more like ex-Spetsnaz probably.
Yeah, that's pretty much what they all are, right?
Ex-Alpha group.
So, there's a lot of reports going around about Russia sending 400 or so contractors with the Wagner Group. It's a Russian private military company to personally guard Nicolas Maduro. So if you don't know the Wagner Group, what Magno and Alegria here were talking about is there was an incident February of 18, right? February 18,
2018.
Yeah. Basically a bunch of Wagner guys along with Syrian armor and I think a few Syrian infantry units attacked a U.S. Special Forces base and got slaughtered. Hundreds of Russians dead. Wagner Group contractors just slaughtered by machine guns and airstrikes.
Mortars.
Yeah, I mean,
Depressed 19-year-olds. Was it Cat 2 or Cat 1?
So
Cat 2, I think.
So Russia's reason why they want to intervene in the Venezuelan government with Nicolas Maduro is they said they're accusing South America owes a lot of money and oil. Apparently, that's the reason of the Russians.
Apparently they have more oil than Saudi Arabia.
Venezuela has the biggest oil reserves in the whole world. Yeah.
We're talking about $1.50 a gallon premium.
Yep.
Maybe less.
So, Venezuela used to be the biggest economy in South America. I'm not sure how true it is, but I saw a few people say that it was the fourth in the world before all the oil assets got taken over by the government, pretty much.
Quote says the Kremlin said South America owes a lot of money in oil. That's it's like their interest in the region.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true, but obviously another reason Russia supports Maduro so much is because he doesn't like the U.S. It really is that simple. Oh, you don't like America? And you're, 1,000, 1,500 miles away from
same thing.
America? Same hemisphere?
Same thing with Syria. Assad doesn't like United States.
Yeah. And that's essentially how it was in the Cold War, right? So, this kind of goes back to people calling this a second Cold War, right? So, you see Russia siding with everyone that doesn't like us, essentially, whether they do it openly or covertly, and then we do the same thing, right? So you see us pouring a lot of military aid, a lot of training into, let's say, Latvia, Lithuania, countries right on the border with Russia. It's the same thing that we did to each other in the Cold War, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
We do the same thing with everyone we don't like. That's the way the world works, especially in an age where geopolitics are such.
Yeah, CIA did it back in Afghanistan in the 80s.
Yeah.
Helping out the Mujahideen.
And then the Russians and the Chinese did it in Korea, in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Chinese more so, but still. So 400 mercenaries. Russian mercenaries personally guarding Maduro. It's kind of crazy.
I'm sure it's more than 400 now, I guess.
Well, I was looking at something
How
the other
recent
day.
was this 400 Wagner group?
This was, let's see, at the time I typed these up, this was, I want to say on the 26th.
Yeah, because we shot that video on the 2nd in my house.
Yeah. So what day is it? The 11th? A couple weeks.
Yeah.
I actually saw something. This the commander of U.S. Southcom, who we'll kind of get into later. I think we're gonna backtrack a little bit once we get done with Venezuela, because I typed up more for what's going on in the U.S. Right. So these are updated a little bit, but we'll backtrack after. So the commander of Southcom was saying that Cuba sent personnel to guard Maduro as well. He didn't really provide evidence of that. I guess it's not unrealistic to think that, right? But he was testifying to the Senate Armed Services Committee. I may or may not have done a post on that. I can't remember. I think I did. I'm not sure. But yeah, he's testifying to the Senate Armed Services Committee Cuba sent military personnel to guard Maduro, and he did mention the Wagner Group PMCs too. So maybe that adds a little bit of credibility. I don't know. Just something to think about. Oh, yeah. See, I made a note of it. I didn't even read ahead. So the commander, U.S. Southcom Admiral Craig Fowler, also accused China of providing cybersecurity to Maduro. In the same session, he was testifying to the Senate Armed Services Committee.
China is like the cyber specialist.
Yeah. I mean, so depending on who you ask, even better than us. What was I gonna say? China's interesting. So Juan Guaido came out and basically came out to China in via like the news. You know what I mean? Came out and said that he would honor any economic agreements that were made with China before he took power, if he does succeed taking power from Maduro, right? So I don't know, maybe that gives China something to think about.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe, because China was basically saying that they're supporting Maduro because of this economic investment they have. But hey, if Juan Guaido says he's going to make good on those investments anyway, that's something to think about. They're probably going to see, well, who do we think is going to win, right? Now, I'd probably say it's a stalemate right now.
Yeah.
Because Maduro has support of a majority of the military, but Guaido has support of a majority of the civilians and a few high-ranking military officers, right? So it's probably a stalemate. We'll have to see how this situation progresses. I think that's just about it for Venezuela, unless you guys have anything else.
No. You know what we should do, man? We should talk about France. Like,
What about France? Like the yellow vest protest?
Yo, there's this dude. He's in a coma. He got shot in the head with like rubber bullets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or whatever. They bring it onto themselves.
I don't know.
They always have revolutions.
It's an interesting situation. I guess maybe.
It's more like a Second Amendment thing.
A lot of Venezuelans actually fearing Maduro is like selling them out to China. Believe it or not.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they're justified in that. You know what I mean? Their economy is garbage and has been for the past couple decades. And again, shortage of food. You got people starving. They can't get medicine. I mean, you can't even afford a piece of bread.
Yeah. People eating.
Well, you're Maduro, right? You have your people are in the situation, and what are you gonna do? Because you can't keep pretending like things are okay, or not okay, but you can't just keep blaming things on the U.S. Like, oh, it's America's fault that you can't buy a piece of bread on like a week's salary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you either have to change your policies, which he's not going to do, because that would make him look stupid on the world stage. He's not going to change his policies. So what else do you do? I'm going to find someone that doesn't like America, a world power, and I'm going to ask them for help.
Yeah. Seems fair.
Yeah. And then the people see that, and they're like, well, we're getting sold out to China. For what?
So
For what?
socialism started in Venezuela and with Chavez, right? I believe.
Yeah.
It was like 2002. Pretty sure around there. We took power.
That sounds about right. You could look that up if you want. I'm not sure the exact date, but that sounds about right. Anything else in Venezuela?
No.
All right. Let's move on to Saudi Arabia. So, a lot of news sites reporting that satellite images suggest that a military base deep within the country appears to be testing and developing ballistic missiles. All right. So, Saudi Arabia is definitely definitely a touchy subject.
It always has been.
Yeah.
Are they considered like a superpower or no?
No.
What about Iran?
A regional power, I guess.
What about Iran?
Iran.
Not a superpower, but a regional power.
Okay.
Definitely a regional power.
They got nuclear capability, so.
I think so, Bob.
Yeah. So and that kind of plays into this. So the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, who is got a lot of media attention for the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, but that's kind of irrelevant to this. He claimed that Saudi Arabia is going to develop nukes if Iran does. Right? So
Yeah,
he says that. Now there's satellite images of them probably developing and testing ballistic missiles. Saudi Arabia is not the most morally sound nation on the earth.
Definitely not.
Maybe something to be concerned about. Professor Jeffrey Lewis, I think he's a professor. He's a missile expert at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies in Monterey, California. He said that the missile base resembles Chinese design.
Sensing some Sunni Shia type of battle. If Iran has it, they gotta have one too. So that type of deal.
Yeah. Well, there's that, and like it resembles Chinese design. Is China helping them build ballistic missiles and nukes? That's crazy. Because our government has a loose alliance with Saudi Arabia, but obviously, I mean, the average American is not in favor of that. You know what I mean? And I think Saudi Arabia sees that, especially the Crown Prince. Well, can I keep counting on U.S. support if I keep, murdering journalists and locking people away for, I don't know, something stupid? You know what I mean? You have no rights in that country. None.
Sharia law.
So, and it kind of like Venezuela, right? Can I keep doing what I'm doing and keep the U.S. as an ally? Or am I going to find someone else? China. Someone who has nukes, someone who has ballistic missiles, just like the U.S., but I don't have to worry about what China citizens think, because who cares? They're not allowed to have opinions
Not
either.
to mention their promises with like economic growth to that country.
Yeah.
Not to mention that China is like socialist as well,
Yeah, God, China is weird because their economy is definitely not communist anymore.
Yeah.
Very capitalist, but their politics is communist. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah, it doesn't
so
really make a lot of sense.
That's how you know communism doesn't really work.
Yeah, it's not
Like
it's
a little bit
not even really communism. It's just the Communist Party isn't necessarily communist. They're just totalitarian.
Yeah.
It's just a name at this
Yeah.
point.
What's the death rate on communism in the 20th century? Like 100 million?
A lot. Especially in China, what?
60
40,
million?
40 to 60 million under Mao?
40 to 60.
Yeah, a 40 like
that's
conservative estimate,
Yeah.
40 million. Twice as much as Stalin, 4 times as much as Hitler, give or take.
Yeah, but communism works, man. Real communism has never been tried, okay?
45 million.
45 million.
Under Mao.
Yeah.
Jesus.
All right. Let's get on to Syria. So, a lot going on in Syria. I think we're going to start doing this. Actually, do you want to do this now or wait till the end to talk about Syria? It's kind of a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I see Iraq, Philippines, pretty short.
Do you want to wait till the end?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll wait for that. All right, let's talk about Iraq. I do not know how to pronounce this guy's name. I'm going to butcher this, but
Kais.
Kais.
Al-Khazali.
Yeah, that guy. Kais Al-Khazali is a newly elected member of the Iraqi parliament, and he's calling for, let's see, typo on the notes, the U.S. to leave Iraq.
Okay, I was like,
Yeah,
IS, I was like,
Shoulda.
Islamic State.
should have read over that again. He's calling for U.S. troops to leave Iraq, saying that, ISIS is defeated. There's no point for U.S. troops in Iraq. It is worth noting that this guy is no friend to the U.S. So, right after the invasion, he was the leader of Ashib al-Haq, again, butcher that, whatever. He basically was a leader of an Iranian-backed militia, right? So he was the leader of an Iranian-backed militia during the invasion, and he also led this militia against ISIS within the past 4 years. So he gained a reputation, obviously, fighting against U.S. troops, U.S. and UK troops in the invasion. He was arrested in 2007 by the U.S. and in 2010 by the UK. I really don't know if they let him go or if he...
I never remember.
I guess they must have let him go, because if he broke out, they would have just captured him again.
Yeah.
So, I don't really know, but that's kind of irrelevant. Basically, he was elected to the Iraqi parliament. He is backed by Iran. His militia is backed by Iran.
Yeah, a bunch of Hezbollahs.
Yeah.
By Shia militia groups.
Yeah. So, Iranian allies in the Iraqi parliament are, telling U.S. troops to leave. And he's saying that if U.S. troops don't leave eventually, then they're going to kick us out by force. Not us, but, U.S. troops.
Yeah, good luck with that.
So, one thing that I didn't put in the notes but is worth noting is all these Iranian-backed militias, a lot of them have U.S. equipment. So whether the Iraqi military gave it to them or they just kind of picked up on them after, half of Iraq's military deserted when ISIS started taking over, these guys have Abrams.
Yeah,
Now, I'm not talking just Humvees and, 50 cals on the back of Toyotas. They have Abrams tanks. And they know how to use them, too. And that sparks a whole nother conversation about who are we selling this kind of equipment to, and how do we know that it's just for them?
Those are army scraps back in 08.
Well, yeah, it was surplus when ISIS took over in Iraq, and they had a bunch of tanks and a bunch of
in a
weapons.
motor pool,
they took
Humvees
over.
with Dishkas.
Yeah.
Most of them damaged too. They're not even cracked windshields.
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather take a salvage title Abrams over a T-72 any day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's still an Abrams.
Or Humvee, you can't see through the windshield driving freaking Toyota Hiluxes.
All right. So also in Iraq, there was a Turkish base in northern Iraq, close to Kurdistan, Iraqi Kurdistan, that got overrun by a bunch of Kurdish protesters. So Turkey has been launching airstrikes every now and again in Iraq, I think in coordination with the Iraqi government, but they killed Kurdish civilians in a couple of those airstrikes. Whether you think that was intentional or not, that's a different conversation. But basically these Turkish civilians went outside the base, surrounded the base, started protesting.
Which civilians? Turkish?
Did I say Turkish or Kurdish?
The Kurdish civilians were
Kurdish
protesting.
civilians?
If I said Turkish, I meant to say Kurdish.
Kurdish,
like Iraqi Kurds.
Oh.
Yeah, right. So they surrounded this base.
I don't get how
They surrounded this base, and then the Turkish troops kind of opened fire a little bit. They weren't mowing them down, you know what I mean? More like warning shots. And then that just pissed off the protesters, and they stormed the base.
Were the protesters armed? Were they just
If they were, it was maybe 10% of them, if that. Most of them were just, pissed off Kurds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turkey's under the NATO. I don't get us. They're still under the Geneva Convention. So.
Turkey sucks. Honestly, they suck.
They should
They
just
suck.
get out of NATO. Honestly.
So, a testament to Turkey sucking. Civilians captured most of these Turkish troops, and the ones they didn't capture just were able to run away, I guess. But yeah, they like captured a ton of these guys.
Being captured by civilians.
And by
Yeah.
protesters. God.
Yeah, the Turkish troops did kill one of the protesters when they were
that makes sense.
before they stormed the base.
Yeah.
And then they stormed the base and captured all of them.
I don't even think protesting is
God.
a thing in the Middle East, man.
So, oh yeah, yeah. The ones that got captured got handed over to the YPG.
Oh man, that's not good.
So Turkey and the YPG aren't exactly friends, and we'll talk
No,
about that
definitely
a
not.
little bit once we get to Syria. But they're essentially at war with each other and have been for decades. Not necessarily the YPG per se, but Kurdish groups that are aligned with the YPG. The Kurdish people are very, very tight knit, right? Very united.
They had the documentary on Netflix. I watched it. It was pretty cool.
What was it?
It was YPJ or YPG.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I think
It was on
I've
Netflix.
seen the title for that, but I
It
haven't
was
watched it.
it followed
Was it like
What is,
women fighters or something like
Peshmerga?
that?
no.
YPG's the Peshmerga, right?
So
Pretty sure.
YPG is Syrian Kurdish military, and Peshmerga is Iraqi Kurdish military. I mean, they're kind of the same thing. Like I said, you know, they're so tight knit and united. They follow each other's lead. You know what I mean?
They took off this documentary off Netflix. It followed like 4 like UK
took it off?
dudes. Yeah. I don't know. It's not on there anymore. But it was like it followed like 4 UK dudes who joined the Kurdish fighters in the fight against ISIS. It's pretty cool.
Apparently, the PKK is more like radical. So these Turkish troops are lucky they got handed a YPG instead of PKKs.
Well, who's saying they won't get handed to the PKK? I think if anything does stop that from happening, it's probably going to be us,
Yeah.
right?
PKK is the one. I looked this up before. The PKK is the one conducting more terrorism against Turkey, like actually going to Turkey.
Yeah. So the PKK is more of a insurgency group. Yeah.
YPG is like the actual Kurds.
Yeah.
Stays in there.
All right, we'll make a quick little mention on the Philippines. This was, a couple weeks ago. This again, I wrote most of this on the 26th, but this happened anywhere between the 26th and the 2nd. I can't remember which date, but basically 2 bombs detonated in a Catholic cathedral on Jolo Island.
Holo Island.
Holo? I don't know how you guys pronounce it. Holo?
Yeah.
Like
Holo, yeah.
Holo Island. 27 dead, at least 77 wounded. I'm sure those figures have changed a bit considering I wrote this a couple weeks ago. No one claimed responsibility at the time that I wrote this. Abu
Sayyaf.
Yeah, Abu Sayyaf operates on that island and has attacked Catholics before. So the government believes it was them, and I don't think that's unrealistic to believe, but it sounds like they didn't claim responsibility for it. At least 15 civilians dead, 5 soldiers dead as well. 14 soldiers wounded, 2 cops wounded, and 65 civilians wounded. Again, I'm sure those figures have changed a little bit once they were able to kind of clear the scene and clean up.
Yeah, those guys been there for decades. Those Abu Sayyaf guys.
Really?
Yeah.
They had the whole island under control.
pretty-
I remember watching like videos on it.
It's a tiny island.
Yeah.
They're not really like.
Still, it was like a war zone, man.
Yeah. They're like back in 2014. They were actually backed up by ISIS. Like
I bet.
Oh, I think I heard something about that. Yeah.
It's all out.
2 bombs detonated in a Catholic cathedral on Holo Island. 27 dead, 77 wounded at least. No one's claimed responsibility. The terrorist group Abu Sayyaf operates on that island and has attacked Catholics and other Christians before. I'm making a mention of it because the Philippines isn't simply like, this is a nice destination spot.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like they're at war. They're at war with multiple groups, and they have been for decades, right? So there's insurgencies with all these radical Islamic groups, and then there's insurgencies with communist groups.
Yeah, for the most part, Philippines is a pretty safe country. It's just like the southern island.
Yeah,
which nobody really goes there, and nothing to see there anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something to make a mention of. Just because a country is generally safe doesn't mean that everywhere in that country is safe. And this is kind of irrelevant, kind of going off on a tangent here. Know where you're going. So, like, if you want to take a vacation, know where you're going, right? So, like, let's say I'm from the East Coast, or I'm from a different country, and I want to see Silicon Valley. I want to see San Francisco. I want to see the Bay Area. You know where I'm not going to go? I'm not going to go to North Richmond. I'm not going to go to East Oakland. You know what I mean? Like, why would you?
East side,
like, sure, like, you think of, Bay Area, Silicon Valley, Northern California, generally nice place to go vacationing, go wine tasting in Napa Valley or whatever. But there's bad places. Like I said, I'm not going to go to East Oakland on vacation because I don't feel like getting stabbed.
You've been too rich. That's the thing. Like, it's San Francisco, and then the hood, and then wine country. You gotta.
Well, yeah. See, and that's what I'm saying.
Not to mention too the American humanitarian aids in Africa.
There's nowhere safe.
They're not really worried about like warlords there. They're just worried about like, I need to get this. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is know where you're going. So let's say I want to take a trip to Sweden.
Yeah. Right.
Generally safe country, right? But hey, man, I could be walking down the streets of Stockholm. Someone rolls up in a car and throws a grenade at me. That happens.
Does that happen?
That happens.
I mean,
honest to God, I'm not making this up, dude. I'm at work, right? And we have this board, current events and stuff, just to see how it like impacts a company. And I mean, honest to God, dude, every single weekend, grenade attack, Sweden. Jesus. Dude, they throw frag grenades at each other. Who does that? That doesn't even happen here.
Homemade IED. They got legitimate frag.
Dude, they just run up on each other and throw grenades and then dip. It's crazy.
Not to mention the rape capital of Europe.
Yeah, again, know where you're going. Know where you're going, right? You always got to be aware of the dangers.
You know what's the funny part? Most of the rape attacks are like from foreigners.
Bet. There's
160,000 migrants.
160,000.
That's all. Yeah, that's all. That's all from foreign. It's not even like their own people.
What's the population of Sweden?
Sweden?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Compared to the migrants. Immigrants. Whatever. I call them immigrants.
There's not a lot of Swedes.
No. I mean, it's all snow.
It's barely 10 million.
Okay. That's not bad.
That was of 2017, though.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a lot. Yeah, it's good with that. Philippines. I know. Well, we kind of stopped talking about that. But.
Well, Abu Sayyaf, just to add on that, back in 2014, he swore an allegiance with ISIS, so they're literally just like ISIS branch in Philippines.
Yeah. Those aren't the guys that took over Manila, are they? Was it someone else or was it them?
Never.
Or not Manila.
Not Manila.
Idiot.
Yes, it starts with
Marawi.
something- Marawi. Yeah, that's
Not
like
Manila.
yeah, that's like a southern it's a city in the southern province.
Was that them or was that someone else?
Yeah,
That
that's
was them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Abu Sayyaf.
So yeah,
ISIS.
essentially ISIS.
How many?
That was back in 2016. Remember that video?
Yeah.
How many radical groups does the Philippines?
Well,
Like-
originally they were called Abu Sayyaf. They're like
Yeah.
literally just Muslim, but they've gotten worse since ISIS Sworn Allegiance started.
Yeah,
They started teaching them like terrorism tactics.
there's a ton of these little groups
Yeah.
out on like these islands,
yeah.
way out in the middle of nowhere. Because the Philippines is thousands of islands, right? So there's a ton of little communists.
Just to add on that, the
extremist
Abu Sayyaf
groups out there.
Not really like. They mostly do negotiations with like the Philippine government.
Yeah.
They're not really.
They just
like,
kind of exist
Yeah.
for the most part.
For the most part, but apparently they've gotten worse with they swore allegiance to ISIS. You see this
Because
attacks lately.
then they get support. They get
not too much funding as well.
they get morale. They get funding. They get guns. They get people.
Tactics.
Yeah, definitely.
It's weird. There's like a bunch of Chechens in there too.
Well,
Yeah, and that's dude.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way it goes with a lot of these Islamic insurgencies, dude. Look at Afghanistan, dude. You got Chechens, Dagestanis.
Yeah.
Like, what are Dagestanis doing in Afghanistan? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you wouldn't believe
It's
there's
crazy. In
Chechens.
Syria, same thing happens. You see a lot of veterans of the Soviet war in Afghanistan, our war in Afghanistan, Iraq, whatever, going over to ISIS and training them.
There's even UK veterans.
Yeah.
They teach ISIS.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's one thing to again, kind of going off on a tangent, but that's one thing to think about is, even though, ISIS and the Taliban and Al Qaeda are different groups that do fight amongst each other.
They all hate Western civilization.
The veterans that make up these groups all fought with each other. These guys have combat experience going back 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just because a group springs up, and they have slightly different ideologies and, conflicting ideologies, right? And they start wars with each other. Yeah, their members all fought together. Their members have the same combat experience.
Yeah. Well, what's weird too? When, some like U.S., UK veterans who fought like in Iraq, Afghanistan, like they actually help out the Kurds. And then what's weird too? They're fighting against ISIS. That actually have like UK veterans and U.S.
Yeah.
from other countries fighting alongside with ISIS. So these guys used to fight alongside each other, and now they're fighting.
So
It's like
it's funny that you say that. There's a show on the History Channel. I think it's 6, right? So it's SEAL Team 6. It's kind of interesting. So like the first episode, they're in Afghanistan, right? And they're trying to kill like some either ISIS or Taliban leader. I can't remember. Doesn't matter. They run into these two guys that try and ambush them, right? They capture these two guys, and one of them is actually, both of them might have been. I think they were both American, actually, brothers, right? Brothers. And the dude that's in charge of this team, the chief petty officer, whoever he is, kills one of them, right? Because this guy's just pissed off, right? He kills this dude's brother, but they're both American. They're from like Michigan, So you have dudes from Michigan going over and fighting for the Taliban and ISIS, going up against like U.S. forces. And again, it's a TV show, but it's not unrealistic to think that kind of thing hasn't happened before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good on that.
Yeah, we'll go on that.
All right. Let's talk about China. A little bit. Is that good? I'm trying to work on my impression.
China.
Trying to work on it. Got a little room for improvement. All right, so the U.S. Navy has sent the USS McCampbell guided missile destroyer and the USNS Walter S. Deal. I don't know how to pronounce that. Refueler through the Strait of Taiwan that separates Taiwan from. I'm not gonna do it again. No, I can't redo that. Separates China through Taiwan. So this, at the time I wrote this, it had been a week after China warned the U.S. of supporting an independent Taiwan. So, something to make note of. Many nations don't recognize Taiwan as an independent country. So if you don't know the general history of Taiwan, so there was a Chinese Civil War, right, between the communists and the nationalists. Jiang Chai-chek, I can't pronounce it. But long story short, obviously the nationalists lost, communists won. What was left of the nationalists fled to Taiwan and declared themselves independent. Like if you meet a Taiwanese person and call them Chinese, they'll get pissed. They're not Chinese, they're Taiwanese. That's like embedded in their national identity, right? But there are a lot of countries. I think us included, I don't know if we even consider Taiwan an independent nation to this day. We used to, and then when relations between us and China kind of started warming up a little bit, we kind of turned our backs on Taiwan. So the official name for Taiwan in the international community is the Republic of China, right? The official name for China is the People's Republic of China. So typically whenever you hear People's Republic, it just means communist, and not that much of a republic either, but yeah, something to make note of. So Taiwan obviously considers themselves an independent nation, and China as their most imminent threat. And China obviously thinks of Taiwan as its territory, and the Taiwanese as Chinese citizens, subject to Chinese rule. Obviously, China can't exactly make good on that because, Taiwan is obviously a thing, so China hasn't really been holding up on that.
They're not even really considered as a country. They're more like a state.
Taiwan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're pretty small.
It is super small.
Connecticut is probably bigger.
I actually did not realize how close Taiwan was to China. I looked it up the other day. I was looking at a map just because, and yeah, it's really close. I mean, not to go all Sarah Palin, but you could probably go to the beach.
Yeah.
And look at Taiwan. Yeah, it's close. It's very close.
They make good movies, so.
I mean, how many Taiwanese movies have you seen? I can't say I've ever seen one.
Because I know Taiwanese. What are those movies called? They call like Ong Bak or something. You ever seen those movies? They're pretty good. They're mostly just fighting movies, like Ip Man.
Yeah, they're like a state.
Yeah.
So they divide their regions in county. So they have counties.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I thought it was closer to Philippines than China. It's closer to China.
Yeah, I don't know why. I kind of thought it was more out in the middle of the ocean, but no, it's super close. Yeah, that's crazy.
They're a pretty advanced country.
Are they really?
Taiwan? Yeah.
You never hear anything
I
about
stopped
Taiwan.
over there, and then we're heading to the United States.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you did?
Yeah, that's where we stopped over.
Really?
When we head to the United States.
Do you remember any of it?
I would say it's like close to Japan. Like
really?
Similar to Japan.
For real?
I can see that.
Very neat, clean.
I did not know that. I thought it was just like.
I would say they're pretty Americanized too. You got like subways.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, pretty nice.
So it's kind of weird. I'm almost positive that we don't recognize Taiwan as Taiwan, but we still do like military drills with them all the time, right? Like our economies, we trade with each other. So yeah, it's kind of a weird situation. And again, this them sending a destroyer and a refueler in between China and Taiwan, it just goes to show that that we're allies of Taiwan, and we're not allies of China. So, yeah, just, stupid, world power tensions. And this, kind of like what we were talking about in the last video with, like Russia flying bombers, like, close to the east coast of, like, Canada. You know what I mean? It's stupid show of force. Happens all the time. Whatever. So, this happened, what day is it? Monday? This was Saturday or Sunday, I can't remember. I think Saturday. So, Reuters, the media entity. Well, yeah, I can't, I think they're British, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm making that up. But yeah, it's like their news. Reuters. Right, they do a lot of international news. So they reportedly got hundreds of documents on a Chinese space station in Argentina. So I didn't know much about the space station until I read about this the other day. But yeah, China has a space station in Argentina, and they said that it played a lot into them landing a spacecraft on the dark side of the moon last year. Did you hear about that?
No, I did not hear about that.
Yeah, so China supposedly landed a spacecraft on the dark side of the moon, and like the first country to do that. Excuse me, late last year. And they said that space station played a big role in that. So these documents basically led people to believe that this is actually like a military spy base, right? Dual purpose, right? So it has its applications to, studying space and stuff like that, but it's like a spy base for the army. So the documents confirmed that Argentina pretty much has no oversight on that base. They don't know what's going on, and they don't really care to know. They just kind of let China do their thing. And the PLA, People's Liberation Army, so the Chinese military, runs that space station. So, the space station's run by the China Satellite Launch and Tracking Control General, which reports to the PLA, right? So the PLA is essentially in charge of that entire station and whatever operations they conduct. China has that lease for 50 years with the Argentine government. Is it Argentinian or Argentine? The government of Argentina.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it too much.
They lease that base for 50 years, and that was in 2016, right? So they still have a while left. Yeah, that's pretty much it for China, unless you guys have something to add. No,
nothing on China.
All right, we're gonna backtrack a little bit. I think, we talked about U.S. and Canada a little bit in the last video. Gonna backtrack because, like I said, these are outdated, right? Got a little more to add. So, within the past week, the Pentagon announced that 3,750 troops are heading to the U.S.-Mexico border, and that's in addition to the troops that are already there. Timeline has not been confirmed on that, right? So there were reports a couple weeks ago saying, troops are going to head to the border, but wasn't a lot of details. Then they came out and said, 37 150 troops are going to the border. It's important to note that New Mexico is pulling their National Guardsmen from the border, right? That came out 4 or 5 days ago, I want to say. The governor made that announcement today.
Gavin Newsom.
Today, Governor Newsom of the great state of California announced that he is also going to pull the troops, the National Guardsmen, from the border, right?
Says, he mentions there's no imminent threat in the border. So.
Yeah. So basically, him and Governor Grissom, I think.
New Mexico?
I think that's how you say it. Basically said that they are gonna play into the federal government's politics and all that. That's kind of irrelevant, but given some context as to why they're pulling the troops. So, New Mexico is actually keeping 12 troops to aid.
12 what? Just 12?
Yeah. Like 12 troops.
It's not even a squad, man.
Yeah, right? So, they're keeping 12 troops on the border with the rest of the Department of Defense to, provide like humanitarian aid. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with a squad of guys? What's the point? Either keep them all or
just take them out.
Yeah.
I mentioned this morning.
12 people?
Yeah.
So she also ordered all the guardsmen of other states to leave New Mexico territory.
You serious?
So if you're a guardsman from
Texas,
let's say you're a
Oklahoma.
guardsman from Florida for whatever reason, and I doubt that they're there, but example, leave New Mexico territory, go somewhere else. So
do governors have that power to?
Yes. So not
over like
not over federal troops, but over state troops. Yes.
Oh, okay.
State troops,
Yeah.
National Guard, state troops.
So
California.
the National Guard is kind of weird, right? So it's the commander-in-chief of the California National Guard is Gavin Newsom, but there are instances where guard units can get put over federal oversight, federal command, right? So like when you have guard units deploying to Iraq and Afghanistan, like combat deployments, they obviously get put over federal command. So she told, all the troops of other states leave New Mexico territory, so only federal troops are going to be in New Mexico territory on the border. I didn't see anything about Newsom doing the same with guardsmen of other states. But he did say he's going to pull them. They're actually going to be redeployed, right? So 110 are redeploying. I don't know where, but they're basically they're going to prep for the next fire season.
Yeah, the fire season.
Right. So that's good, I guess. The fire season devastates this state every single year. So I don't know. I mean, get ready for it, I guess, a little bit. Whatever.
That last one.
He mentioned this morning. I heard it. He said he's not trying to do like political with against Trump pretty much. Yeah. He says he's not trying to, but
I'm pretty sure he is. Like pulling the troops, he is. Whatever.
Well, I mean, I'm both of these announcements, both with New Mexico and California, are definitely political on purpose. And Governor Grissom came out and said that. Irrelevant to this channel, but I guess a little bit of context. You know what I mean? She legitimately said, I'm not gonna play into Trump's BS, essentially. The one that had ordered that troop deployment was the predecessor. I can't remember his name, but whoever was governor before her. And the same thing with Governor Brown before Newsom came into office. So yeah, 110 of those troops are gonna help prepare for fire season. 150 are going to the state's counter drug task force. I really don't know how that's gonna play out. Not a lot of details on that. And the last 100 are going to conduct counter intel ops on cartels. So I don't really know the details on that. That's interesting. The Navy is supposed to deploy a literal combat ship to Latin America sometime before the end of the year. So commander of U.S. Southcom, Admiral Fowler, who we were talking about a little bit earlier, was testifying to the Senate Armed Services Committee, same session that he was testifying. He came out and said this, that the Navy is supposed to deploy one of these ships to Latin America before the end of the year. The deployment is in coordination with the Coast Guard, and missions will include training, humanitarian assistance, possibly cooperating with partner forces in the region, and their main mission is going to be counter narcotics. That is interesting. Again, not a lot of details on that, but it's I don't know, weird, I guess, right? The Navy's deploying a ship to conduct counter narcotics. I mean, you think about it, that's more of a Coast Guard thing, but they're cooperating with the Coast Guard, so
that's more like Homeland Security gig rather than.
Yeah, well, Coast Guard, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like a nice mute to Central America.
Yeah, I mean, that if you're on that ship, that kind of be a cool deployment, I guess, right? Yeah, interesting. That's about it for the U.S. You guys got anything for that?
No.
All right. So last topic, we're going to talk about Syria. So I think what we're going to start doing is saving Syria for last, just because it's the most kinetic conflict going on in the world right now. So a lot to talk about, right? So an Israeli patrol came under fire from Syrian forces in the Golan Heights. So the Golan Heights is occupied by Israel, right? So the Israeli military patrols that area all the time, and with good reason, right? Because they just came under fire. So they didn't take any casualties. IDF deployed additional Iron Dome batteries to the area. So the Iron Dome is like their counter rocket, whatever you'd call it, system. It's pretty good. U.S. is actually talking about buying that.
In terms of Syrian forces, you're talking about the
like Syrian government forces.
Syrian government under Assad, right?
Yeah. So the Golan Heights was Syrian territory, but obviously Israel holds it now, and whatever. I'm sure people are going to hear this and they're going to say, no, it's Syrian territory, blah blah blah. Like, well, you know what? There are Israeli troops in it, so I don't care about the politics. But if your army controls an area, I don't care about the politics. You control that area.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? You really can't argue that.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's gonna piss some people off. I really don't care.
That's right. It's bordered with Syria, Golan Heights.
Yeah. I mean, it was Syrian territory, right?
Yeah.
I
can see the outline. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's recognized on Google Maps now. Must be official.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. That's fair. So, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared that they are going to launch more attacks on Iranian forces within the country. So Iran supports Bashar al-Assad and his forces with training, personnel, equipment, money.
Funding, yep.
Yeah, right. Israel is obviously no big fan of Syria, and they're no big fan of Iran. So the IDF every now and again will launch airstrikes on Iranian forces in the country, and I mean, yeah, they can't really do anything about it, right? Syrian air defense is trash, right? And the Russians don't really get into it. I don't think Russia really cares as long as their forces aren't necessarily under a threat.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's debate on how good their anti-air is as well, but it doesn't matter because I don't care. Israel actually made the first combat sortie of an F-35 in Syria. So Israel got F-35s about the same time we did, and they used F-35s launching airstrikes in Syria, first combat use, and it did fairly well, supposedly. Although, you know,
that jet's expensive.
Yeah, so it better be good, but they were, you know, launching rockets at little toots on the ground, so yeah, I don't know if that's really a test of how great the platform is, but
I guess it's always
whatever,
a test,
it
though,
worked.
right?
It worked.
85 million.
How much?
85 million.
The jet? That was worth more than that.
Yeah, as of 2019, F-35As.
Good God.
What's an Osprey worth? Like 19,000?
That's what it's worth. I'm sure that's not
Show
what
me
it
the
goes for.
Carfax.
Yeah, I'm sure they go for. Sure they go for like 30 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You get about 2 weeks worth of use out of it, and then the thing crashes. These things are garbage, man. Garbage. Yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu war strikes on Iranian forces in the country. ISIS cells killed 4 Syrian soldiers from the 6th Regiment Border Guards in the Deir ez-Zor Desert. So, Syrian army units have taken the vast majority of ISIS territory in the territory that they control, right?
Yeah.
So, that's excluding the territory that terrorist groups hold in like western Syria, and obviously that we hold with the Kurds in northern Syria and eastern Syria. So the territory that Bashar al-Assad holds is mostly free of ISIS, but like I said, they have cells. So they don't necessarily have the ability to hold territory like they did 2015, 2016.
Sure.
But they're kind of just
they're kind of
they're out there like chilling in the desert. You know what I mean? They're living in their little huts and caves, and
For the most part, Assad controls like the southwestern of the country, right?
Yeah.
Damascus.
Yeah.
More like east. That's like where the ice is at.
Yeah. So east of the Euphrates is controlled by us and the Kurds. So yep. ISIS cells killed 4 Syrian soldiers. ISIS may not be able to hold territory necessarily, but they are definitely still a thing, and they could definitely still kill people. So, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, God, I'm sure I just butchered that too. They were the Syrian branch of Al-Qaeda. They broke off with Al-Qaeda, I want to say in 2015, so now they're their own thing, but they're the main rebel group that's holding out against the government, right? But, you know, they're former Al-Qaeda, so...
They're still Al-Qaeda.
Yeah, extremist group, not really rebel group, but whatever. They're holding out against the government, and they took control of all the major roads between the Idlib province and northern Aleppo. What is Aleppo?
Pray for Aleppo. We see a bunch of liberal friends posting that.
So the Idlib province is was what they call a de-escalation zone. So this was an agreement between Russia, Syria, Iran, and Turkey, right? They had these little de-escalation zones where, people could, in theory, live without worrying about, getting AE1s dropped on their heads and stuff like that. But HTS, Herat Tahrir al-Sham, is not recognized as part of that agreement. But they hold the Idlib province. So at some point, the army is going to go in and flush them out. And HTS knows that, so they took control of all the major roads. So the army doesn't have supply routes inside the province. Yeah. An offensive is going to happen at some point. It's just a matter of when. I mean, that will be probably the last major offensive of the Civil War is against HTS. So, keep an eye on that. The Syrian Democratic Forces captured a lot of villages in the Euphrates River Valley. Dude, I can't talk today, man. Jesus. So, again, I wrote this around the 26th, 27th, around there. So, within the past couple weeks, the SDF has continued to capture more villages. And ISIS has, I think, one village left. Right? That they have one stronghold left in the Euphrates River Valley. And the SDF and U.S. forces just launched an offensive on that village a couple days ago. So, again, ISIS is losing territory. Doesn't mean they can't still kill people. So they definitely can.
Yeah.
Right?
Mostly like in the eastern Syria right now, right? Close to the border of Iraq.
Yeah, I get Euphrates River Valley area.
Yeah.
So, the Afrin Liberation Front, ALF, which is essentially a unit of the YPG, right? Turkey came in, took Afrin from the YPG, and now you have like YPG guerrillas still fighting Turkish forces and Free Syrian Army forces who are Turkish proxies. Essentially, the FSA is not what they used to be when the war first started. Now they're just a Turkish proxy.
Yeah.
Right. So the ALF killed at least 4 Turkish-backed fighters, so FSA fighters, across the Afrin region. The YPG is still very much active in Afrin. They are not happy about having that province taken from them. And yeah, they're gonna continue to fight Turkey. This goes back to Turkey basically being at war with all these Kurdish groups for decades, right? Yeah, Turkey may have the territory, but it doesn't mean they're necessarily safe. Turkish and Russian MPs, military police, deployed north of Afrin, right? So you have a lot of Turkish troops in Afrin trying to keep order, whatever, and now you have Russian MPs backing them up. Dude, Turkey is a NATO nation, not a NATO ally. It's like they are part of NATO, and they're working with Russia. If you have any misconceptions about what the purpose of NATO is, it is to counter Russia. It is and has always been. If you think otherwise, you're wrong. Like, you're just wrong. I'm not even going to argue. You are incorrect.
Look at NATO against Warsaw Pact.
Yeah. So here you have a NATO member working with the Russian military against U.S. allied fighters. So the YPG is definitely a more dependable ally than Turkey is or has ever been or will ever be.
Not to mention, remember that Erdogan, when that happened? Remember Erdogan? Like military coups and crisis in Turkey? That
I
alone,
remember that, dude.
that alone, we should have just kicked them out of NATO.
So, Combined Joint Task Force Operation Inherent Resolve Coalition Operation Against ISIS declared that the SDF, Syrian Democratic Forces, YPG, same thing, holds over 400 foreign fighters from 40 different countries captive. SDF is saying that they don't know what they're going to do with them if the U.S. leaves. They're saying they might not be able to hold them. The State Department has talked about maybe using Guantanamo Bay to hold all these guys if their parent countries won't accept them, which they probably won't. It's going to come on us, right? We have to deal with it because these countries won't want to. So, yeah, Guantanamo Bay. I think the most Guantanamo Bay's ever had, I think, was around 700. Now they have, I want to say they have a few dozen right now, but yeah, they might get around 900, the most they've ever had. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see. Obviously, President Obama wanted to close down Guantanamo throughout his entire 8 years, and that didn't happen. And now they're looking at getting over 800 prisoners from one single conflict. There are reports that SOCOM, U.S. Special Operations Command, has deployed a unit, unnamed unit, to search for ISIS fighters, including Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader and founder of ISIS.
Yeah, I thought that guy was dead already for years.
No. So
No.
there are always reports of him. Oh, well, he's been killed in it. No, he's still alive.
Still alive?
No one knows where he is, but he's still alive.
Course.
Yeah. So this wasn't confirmed, but there were reports that SOCOM deployed a special unit to go hunt for these guys.
Definitely the SEALs.
That's about it for this week. Got through everything. A little bit of camera troubles, but whatever.
Yeah.
Guys, if you like this sort of thing, please consider liking this video, subscribing, share with friends, family, whoever you think likes this sort of stuff. Support means a lot, goes a long way. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks.